The before was much colder than this, from what I remember. Or perhaps it was warmer. Or perhaps it felt warmer because I wasn't aware of this warmth. I can't say right now. But I suppose that it was different. Being stuck indoors all the time, well, it's exactly like they say it is. Isolating. But that goes without saying, doesn't it? I miss seeing others. I miss seeing them move between each other, around each other, and through each other. I miss feeling the proximity of a group, the sensation of frustration or boredom, but a communal frustration and boredom. God, I miss sitting and watching people eat. Isn't that weird? I miss seeing what people are eating or drinking. What has he got in his lunch, I would think? Who is he? Who is he to me? Who am I to him? Suppose in a way now we're all the same. More than ever before. We all just eat alone. And we are no one to anyone else, and everyone else is no one to ourselves. God, it gets lonely. Doesn't it? I mean, I always thought of myself as a bit of a loner, a bit isolated, which I am, but I think I'm isolated amongst others, normally. And actually, when I would go off on my own, I would often do so not to be alone, but to be with others and around others. Isn't that funny? Perhaps I actually can't deal with all this isolation, with these walls. Perhaps what I actually need is people I don't know. Not to see me, but to see myself. Perhaps I need to see people to feel safe or alive. Yes, alive. It's alive. To know that everyone else is doing the same thing in the same place at the same time, even if that same thing is just breathing and moving. Living. Maybe I need to see life to feel life. It changes a lot, I suppose.
And finally, we started on the houses. The site was planned for maximum sunshine, and then everyone could take his choice. Detached houses, semi-detached, terraced houses, flats for people who wanted them, hostels where the young folks could get together, and bungalows for the oldies. And so we moved right in. I'm telling you, it works out fine. Just you try it.
I keep asking myself that same question. What is a home? What is a place? An identity? Well, I suppose in the end they aren't really anything. Not real boundary-laden things, but things that have a feeling. An idea. A sensation ascertaining to comfort or nostalgia or familiarity or simply memory. I remember what it was like. I remember what it was like before everything changed. It's those memories that draw us around, that drive us forward. To look into the future, we must first confront the past. And in that confrontation, what can we do other than wish backwards? The past will always win. The issue with the future is that we don't know how it ends. But we know how the past ends. We live how the past ends. It's safe because memories have narratives, like a home recording. You have the beep that starts the video and the beep that ends it. That world is perfectly captured in those defined limitations. So I guess when we talk about a place or a home, it's one of boundaries, but not physical boundaries. Time boundaries, perhaps? I'm not too sure. I think it's probably time boundaries, but maybe not. But that would imply it can't exist now, and it certainly does. That sensation does exist in the now. Sometimes when I visit a familiar place, or when I hear a piece of music that sounds like something before, or when I watch something I've seen before, or even when I think something that I've thought before. So in that sense, yes, it is just a sensation. Home, that's what we're talking about. It is just a sensation. It's a sensation of familiar boundaries, retrospective boundaries that we so often live beyond. And as soon as we find ourselves in those boundaries again, it's like whoosh. But it'll only last a moment. So, I suppose I am at home right now. Will I return to my home ever again? Well, very possibly, likely even, but can I stay at home? No, probably not. Those boundaries would quickly change and evolve into a retrospective space or a memory or something else. I suppose things just aren't what they used to be. It would be stupid to think they never will be what they were again, because what they were is not what they actually were, but what they are now, if that makes sense. The past is only the past because of the present. And I quite like it here, really. It reminds me a lot of home, the past, and have some real good opportunities. Just have to wait for that retrospective feeling. Won't be long, I'm sure. It never is.
Eventually, all the good things reach the retail stores. Yes, the corner grocery has really grown up. Shoppers enter the supermarket on one side, while on the other, a steady stream of products is delivered on a tight schedule. It is here that the miracles of research and services are tied together for the consumer. Every day, from American farms and ranches, from distant parts of the world, from packing sheds and processing plants across the nation, comes the great variety of foods Americans demand. The supermarket, created by research and industry, is the showplace of today's agriculture. Help yourself to a miracle. Yes, here is where the shopper benefits from the work of the scientist and the farmer, the processor and the marketer. Now, in one shopping trip, the average family can buy a full week's supply of groceries, much of it with built-in maid service. And getting the food to the customers requires many more workers than are needed to grow the food. This has been made possible by the fact that each American farm worker feeds more people than any other farmer on earth. History teaches that a nation grows according to its agriculture, the very basis of life. And most of our children are stronger and grow up to live longer. Eating more nutritious food and drinking more milk in school helps safeguard their health. For it is only with today's food that tomorrow's citizens can grow healthy. And so Americans of all ages in cities, suburbs, and rural areas will remain the best fed, best clothed, best housed people in the world, thanks to more and more miracles from agriculture.
Oh God, I get so hungry now. But I eat so much less. I guess before I had the freedom to eat anything, anywhere, whereas now it's a hassle to muster up anything more than toast. But I want to eat more than toast. Oh God, I want to eat more than toast. I do try and order in once a week, but the selection is limited in all realities. Or perhaps it's less limited. Well, I don't really know. I suppose it feels limited because you see it on in a list, and the list is a top choice and a bottom choice, but I mean, who picks anything which is further than 10 from the top? I mean, we've all heard those horror stories of chickens' beaks and rats' tails, and while I appreciate there is probably nothing more than snobbery to support them, the possibility is always present. Still, I do try and order once a week, like I said. It never concerned me before, though. The chicken's beak thing. I used to go out all night, and then at God knows what hour in the morning I would stumble into the fried chicken shop out of my own head and order the biggest thing on the menu. And then I would shovel it down my throat quicker than the night bus journey home. And then I left the city. And for a while. All of a sudden, food feels very different when you leave the city. You become more aware of where it's come from. I mean, you can literally see it breathing, if you know what I mean. It's there, alive. So I tried to eat well. And I did. There is less given to you in the country. You have to make it yourself if you want it. I also drank less. Much less. But now that I'm back in the city, back in the boxes, well, I just expect it, you know. I expect choice. And quality of choice at that. I expect to be able to pick up my phone and 30 minutes later a dinner arrive. Isn't that surreal? Phone to door in 30 minutes, considering the distance. What a world we live in. To expect so much. We expect so much. So much of other people. But when other people expect something of ourselves, we shy away, find an excuse, turn to blame and frustration. That's probably a wild assumption and generalisation. Most people are, in fact, quite lovely. But what about what we expect of ourselves? I expect someone else to deliver a hot, delicious and hygienic meal to my door from their workplace in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Yet when I'm hungry, and I expect myself to feed myself what I can muster up, what can I muster up? Toast. Toast and butter. I opened a particularly delicious bottle of wine the other night. It was smooth and silky, and you could literally taste the fruit. It was a gift, you see. But when I go to the shops, I buy whatever is on special. £6 to £7, mind. I don't head straight to the bottom shelf, but if I just cuffed up an extra £1, I could have something to enjoy. Instead, after working all day on a Friday, I expect to feel drunk on wine. I expect to feel I'm letting my hair down, but I expect it for the cheapest possible price. And it's the same as food. Who am I to expect anything? Now, I'm a staunch lefty, voted Labour all my life, but I tell you what, living in the country, seeing the animals and the fruit grow and live, well, I understood there. I understood that food and drink takes effort. And love. And life. It takes life. Well, now I'm back in the city, I don't see that. I just see money and time. It's worth paying more, I guess, is what I'm saying. I suppose that is quite a Labour way of looking at it, really. Because you're paying for life. You're paying for the life of an animal, a fruit, a farmer, a delivery driver, a shop assistant, for the cycle of the world. It's the value of an object. In the city, I have no perspective of value. I don't think any of us do. Not really. We only have a market perspective, and the poor farmers end up pouring milk down the drains. And farmers love their animals and their produce more than most people love their own parents. All that suffering, all that vilification, all that undervaluing, for what? For love. They do it for love. They miss holidays and family and civilization for a love of that ancient art of agriculture. And we expect them to charge nothing. We just expect them to cuff up the goods. We expect too much and understand too little. Sorry. Look what you made me do. You made me get all political now. Anyway, the message of the story is think before you order and think before you butter your toast. I know I will.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are now at cruising altitude, 35,000 feet. Our flying speed is 575 miles per hour. In addition, we're benefiting from a substantial tailwind by courtesy of the jet stream. Hence, our ground speed is now approximately 658 miles per hour. Indications are that our arrival at London Airport may be ahead of schedule. I'll be speaking with you again from time to time. Thank you.
This is the atmosphere on a jet clipper flight. Delicious food adds to the enjoyment. It's prepared in 4 simultaneously operating galleys where dishes can be cooked in 5-minute ovens. Scenes of living room quiet and relaxation. The mood enhanced by lighting that can be changed from the pale pink of dawn through all the variations to the dark blue of night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain again. I've just been talking with flight control at London Airport. The temperature there is 64 degrees and the weather is clear. If you haven't already changed your watches to conform to the time difference, I suggest you do so now. We are now making our descent. I won't be speaking to you again, as we'll be in our landing pattern over London in the next few minutes. It was a pleasure to have you aboard our jet clipper. We hope to have you with us again soon. Thank you.
I'm reading a lot more now. Oh God, so much more. I'm reading a bit of everything, really. I've got some Dickens, Virginia Woolf, Lawrence. I bought a couple off the bucket list. I even tried Dostoevsky, but I couldn't cope with the names. I enjoy buying them. Just having them around me, pages and pages everywhere. Sometimes I just pick out a book from the pile beside my bed and read a couple of random pages. I then put a tiny star next to the page number as if to say, "You read those ones," and then I pop it back into the pile. I like to think of them as windows. Oh, God, that sounds pathetic, doesn't it? No. Well, I do. I like to think of them as windows to a world outside this one. Perhaps an older world, or a more open one, or one with lots of people, or one on the sea, the country. And in those moments where I have no idea what came before or what comes after, I can almost live through these masks. I can imagine that I'm living like I did before. Oh, I also love the weight of something like that in my hands. The weight of all that thought and all that work. I watched an interview with a man recently, a writer. It was on television, obviously. And he said it took him 10 years to write this book that he just published. 10 years! Imagine how 10 years feels between your hands and your fingers. How 10 years feels as your face as you flick through these 300 odd pages. All that life in a small block is just, especially now, well, it's just freeing. And when you pick up something old, you not only have all the life of the writer from that time, many years ago, you also have all the places that book has been or seen since. The cities, the cottages, the oceans, the countries, the hands, the eyes. That story has lived more of a life than you ever will. It has flown free across the land and the sea and the world. And in that moment when you flick its pages for the first time, you are joining and absorbing that story. You can feel that story. You are that story. It's amazingly freeing. I suppose in the long run, it's the closest thing to living I can get now. That's not an easy thing to admit. That now, rather than before, I'm becoming more trapped. And that words on paper live more than I can or ever will. Everything has changed so much. So much.
Ideas of the Yorkshire Development Group architects had become a reality. Environments have been created on a human scale where social contact is encouraged.
Well, I mean, it's a luxury, is that? An inside toilet and a lovely big kitchen.
Plenty of room, plenty of light. But it's more open, is this, with the verandas. You can walk right around without having to go downstairs until you get to the far end.
I like to have a chat, but I don't like people to live with me. And I find in here that I can either be very, friendly with somebody, and another day I can sort of keep to myself or want to keep to myself. That's the good thing about having the high walls at the back. It's ideal for the children because I can put them in the yard at the back and I've no fear of them getting out onto the road or...
I think the media has changed quite a lot over the past few years. It used to be that it was an escape, a distant jump, if you like, into another world. I used to watch a lot of travelogues, travel programmes even. I used to enjoy seeing all those places, all those colours, all those shapes and those textures. It was all about seeing, wasn't it? Yeah. Seeing that the world is different out there. You could turn off the sound and just watch all those people and places. And it wasn't all cities and holiday destinations. Oh, no way. There were mountains and deserts and ice fields and rolling hills and, all sorts. Anything and everything. Like the eye of God resting on his seventh day. I remember the wash of amazement as the camera would pan over a towering cliff, and the comfort of that thought that went, I could go there if I wanted. I could hop on a bus or a train or a plane or a boat, and I could be there face to face with nature and human. Of course, I never did. Not really. I'd venture across a couple of motorways, but beyond that, well, I suppose it was the comfort of knowing that all that was out there, that reach, and was all alive. The world felt small and big, and like I could grip it and live it. Of course, it's all very different now, isn't it? And the media has changed to match. It's all about stories now. Who's doing what? Where is this happening? When? Dramas that focus on the minutiae of human life. Grand stories about tiny feelings. I suppose it's quite hard not to feel closed in, and claustrophobic even. Our media isn't interested in the bigger picture anymore. The wash of life, the tide of humanity on the shores of nature. Well, that was quite nice, wasn't it? No, it wants drama. It wants conflict. It wants us to keep coming back for more and more. It wants us trapped and ensnared. And all the while it preaches its message of humanity and right and wrong and freedom, and that we should desire to be free. Well, look at us now. We're all boxed in, trapped and teased. And I bet they couldn't be happier to have us trapped and poked by their endless barrage of dramatic fluff. They've got us all believing that the buck stops at the door to the brain, that our consciousness is the limits of our world. And then they're surprised that we're destroying the planet day by day with fumes and concrete and factories and poison and oil and bullets and bombs and nuclear energy and hate and blame and prejudice and hunger and war and poverty and sadness. Well, perhaps it's better that we're all trapped. We've all become part of the media. We all are the media, in a global city, in tiny digital flats with no windows and no idea who the hell your neighbour is. And the walls are closing in. And you can shout all you want, you can blame those in the apartment next to you, but their rooms are getting just as small. So they shout and blame the apartment next to them, and so it goes forever and ever. There's no space, not anymore. There used to be all the space in the world. You could breathe and live. You could see the world that you lived in. What world do we live in now? Who knows? Who understands? None of us. Not one of us. We can't see it. All we can see is the four walls of our global city with its media mayor. Sorry. I should probably go for a walk. I haven't been outside for 4 days. The streetlights make me feel quite sick. Oh, God. I do miss the country. find it hard to sleep now. Much harder. I'm used to sleeping without curtains, seeing the stars. But since being here, well, you don't want people looking in. You don't want people to see you. The real you, if you like. The you that stumbles to the toilet naked at 4 o'clock in the morning. The you that lies in bed reading at 10 o'clock on a Friday evening. The you that cries in the ad breaks. It's all very exposing, I suppose. The curtains. It's better to have them closed. To hide you. But sleeping with them closed, God, it's so dark. You often don't know if your eyes are open or closed themselves. If you're dreaming or living, the line is so thin, and it keeps getting thinner. The longer I keep my curtains closed and my door locked, the less I'm sure that I'm alive. Am I alive? Or am I asleep? How can you tell? It's all so different now. There used to be a base layer of reality, of mortal assurance, that the world will survive me, that I'm just a blip in its billion-year timeline, that I am but a fragment of dust in its endless narrative. Not even a word on a page, but a minuscule trace of ink lost somewhere in the centre of the dot of an eye. Now I'm not even sure I'm that. I'm so consumed with my own narrative, my own story, my own tiny existence, that I don't exist anymore. I'm no blip, or dust, or trace of ink. If I don't know I'm alive, then I'm clearly not. I close the curtains. I get lost in this monotony of myself. I'm alone. Now more than ever. Why sleep? Why dream? I might dream of fields and nature and people and space and streets full of life and of the sea. What a cruel punishment to live for 7 hours a day, to really live in my own mind, only to wake up and see closed curtains and walls which reflect only images of my inner self. Why sleep at all? Why wake at all? I suppose it'll all end at some point. At some point the concrete walls will crumble and the curtain will pull to dust. And we will all walk out into the air and breathe again. Live again. Together. Oh God, I hope so. I'm getting awfully bored and awfully lonely. I've never been so lonely. I've never felt so dead.